There's a moment when you realize that everyone around you is performing. The colleague who praises your work while secretly undermining your projects, the friend who offers support while cataloging your vulnerabilities, the partner who speaks of loyalty while keeping their options open. This moment of recognition isn't bitter, it's clarifying. It's the beginning of your ascension to a throne most people don't even know exists. You see, in a world where betrayal has become the default currency of human interaction, true loyalty isn't just rare, it's revolutionary. And the only way to discover who possesses this revolutionary quality is through deliberate, systematic testing. Not the kind of testing that announces itself, but the subtle, surgical kind that reveals character when people think no one is watching. The weak call this manipulation. The wise call it survival. Machiavelli understood that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both, but he missed something crucial. It's better still to know exactly who can be trusted with either your love or your fear. This knowledge, this absolute clarity about human nature becomes your greatest weapon and your most unassailable defense. The methodology begins with understanding that every person in your orbit is, consciously or unconsciously, probing for your weak points. They're testing your boundaries, measuring your responses, calculating their position relative to yours. The difference between you and them is that you're going to do it intentionally, systematically, and with surgical precision. Start with digital loyalty. Watch how people respond when you share something vulnerable online, then observe what they do with that information in private conversations. Sarah from accounting likes your post about struggling with anxiety. Then 3 days later, during a team meeting, she subtly questions your ability to handle the stress of the new project. The test is complete. The data is clear. Sarah has revealed herself. Here's exactly how you respond. You don't address her comment directly in the meeting. Instead, you wait until she's finished speaking, pause for exactly 3 seconds while maintaining eye contact, then say, "I appreciate the concern, Sarah. Sometimes the most resilient people are those who acknowledge their challenges." You smile, not warmly, but with the kind of controlled intensity that makes her suddenly unsure whether she's won or lost this exchange. Spoiler, she's lost. The social media test scales beautifully. Post something that requires genuine courage, a controversial opinion, a personal struggle, a bold career move. The responses you receive aren't just comments, they're intelligence reports. James immediately wants to argue in the comments, demonstrating his need to be right at your expense. Maria sends a private message offering support, but asks probing questions about your decision-making process. Lisa shares your post with an added comment that subtly reframes your courage as recklessness. Each response gives you precise data about their character. James needs dominance over connection. Maria collects vulnerability as leverage. Lisa presents herself as wiser than you while benefiting from association with your boldness. None of this is personal, it's simply information. Information that will determine exactly how much access each person gets to your inner world going forward. But here's where it transcends simple boundary setting and becomes genuine power dynamics. The testing phase isn't just about defense, it's about elevation. As you systematically identify who belongs in which circle of your life, you simultaneously construct something magnificent, a hierarchy of trust that positions you at the apex of absolute clarity. The professional sphere provides the richest testing ground because the stakes feel lower while the character revelations are most profound. During your next team meeting, present an idea that's genuinely good but requires collective commitment to execute. Watch who immediately offers enthusiastic support, who asks thoughtful questions, who remains silent, and who finds subtle ways to undermine without appearing oppositional. Take David, your department head. When you propose the new client retention strategy, he says, "Interesting approach, though I wonder if you've considered the complexities of implementation." The words seem reasonable, but notice the body language. The slight lean back, the finger tap on the table, the glance toward others to gauge their reaction before committing to his own. David isn't engaging with your idea. He's managing his own image while keeping you in a subordinate position. Your response is a masterclass in power dynamics. You don't defend your idea or acknowledge his implied criticism. Instead, you lean forward slightly, maintaining steady eye contact, and say, "You're right, David. Implementation complexity is crucial. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the most elegant approach." Then you wait, and you watch. Here's what happens next. David either provides substantive input, revealing genuine partnership potential, or he deflects with vague concerns that expose his lack of actual engagement. Either way, you've learned exactly where he stands. If he deflects, you've also demonstrated to the room that his criticism was hollow. If he engages meaningfully, you've identified someone worth including in your inner circle of professional allies. The beauty of this approach is that it works regardless of your position in the hierarchy. Whether you're the CEO or the intern, the mechanism is the same. Present opportunities for people to reveal their character, then catalog the results with scientific precision. Romantic relationships require the most sophisticated testing because the stakes are highest and the self-deception runs deepest. Here's the fundamental truth most people avoid. Someone who truly loves you will pass tests they don't even know they're taking. Someone who's using you will fail tests that seem impossible to fail. The loyalty test in romantic contexts isn't about creating drama or artificial conflict. It's about observing behavior during moments of genuine choice. When you're sick, do they bring medicine or do they keep their distance to avoid catching anything? When you receive good news, are they genuinely excited or do they find ways to diminish your achievement? When you're struggling with a decision, do they help you think it through or do they push their preferred outcome? Most revealing of all, when someone else criticizes you in their presence, do they defend you, remain silent, or join the criticism? This last test is nuclear-level character revelation. Alex, who claims to love you deeply, stays silent when his friend jokes about your career choice at dinner. The test is complete. Alex has chosen his friend's approval over your dignity. File this information carefully. It will inform every future decision about how much of yourself to invest in this relationship. The advanced practitioner understands that testing isn't manipulation. It's simply creating conditions where people can show you who they really are. You're not forcing anyone to behave badly. You're just paying attention when they choose to do so. As Machiavelli observed, men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. But the inverse is also true. Those who refuse to deceive will reveal themselves just as clearly to anyone paying attention. Here's where the philosophy becomes dangerous in the most beautiful way possible. Once you've systematically tested everyone in your orbit, once you've catalogued their responses and categorized their character, something remarkable happens. You stop operating from assumption and start operating from knowledge. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. And clarity in human relationships is the closest thing to godlike power that mortals can achieve. The throne you ascend isn't physical, it's psychological. It's the position of absolute certainty about who will support you, who will betray you, and who will simply fade into irrelevance when the stakes get high. From this position, you make decisions with surgical precision because you know exactly what resources you can count on. When facing a professional crisis, you don't waste time hoping your colleagues will support you. You know which 3 people will actually show up and exactly what each can contribute. When ending a toxic relationship, you don't wonder who will take sides. You know exactly who your real friends are because you've already tested their loyalty. When pursuing an ambitious goal, you don't guess who will help. You have empirical data about each person's character. This level of clarity creates a feedback loop of power. Because you know who to trust, you make better decisions. Because you make better decisions, you achieve better outcomes. Because you achieve better outcomes, higher quality people want to be in your orbit. Because higher quality people want to be in your orbit, your circle continuously improves. But here's the truly sophisticated element. Once you've reached this position of clarity, your testing becomes so subtle that it's invisible even to those who might recognize it. You don't need dramatic confrontations or obvious loyalty tests because you've developed the ability to read character through micro-expressions, response patterns, and energy shifts. During casual conversation, you mention a minor vulnerability and gauge the response. Someone who immediately offers practical help or genuine empathy passes. Someone who stores the information for later use or uses it to position themselves as superior fails. Someone who changes the subject to avoid emotional engagement reveals their limitations. Each response gives you precisely the information you need to calibrate their position in your life. The professional application becomes almost effortless. In meetings, you present ideas and watch who builds on them versus who finds subtle ways to diminish them. You observe who takes credit for collaborative work and who deflects praise back to the team. You notice who maintains composure under pressure and who looks for others to blame when things go wrong. Consider this scenario. Your company is downsizing, and everyone knows layoffs are coming. Pay attention to who becomes more collaborative versus who becomes more competitive, who shares information versus who hoards it, who maintains their integrity versus who throws others under the bus to save themselves. This isn't just character revelation, it's prophecy. How people behave during crisis tells you exactly how they'll behave during every future crisis. The intimate relationship testing becomes equally sophisticated. You don't create artificial dramas. Instead, you observe authentic moments. How do they treat service workers when they think you're not paying attention? How do they respond when they think you've made a mistake? How do they handle your success when it threatens their ego? How do they discuss your relationship with their friends? The most advanced test is the abundance test. When something wonderful happens to you, a promotion, recognition, unexpected good fortune, watch their facial expression in the first 3 seconds before they have time to construct their response. Genuine love produces instant joy. Everything else produces some variation of envy, calculation, or performed enthusiasm. The difference is unmistakable once you know what to look for. Here's the nuclear level revelation. Most people fail these tests not because they're evil, but because they're operating from their own unhealed wounds and unconscious patterns. Understanding this doesn't mean you should accept betrayal or disloyalty. It means you can categorize people with scientific precision and interact with them accordingly. The person who consistently chooses their comfort over your growth belongs in the acquaintance category, not the inner circle. The person who supports you only when it costs them nothing belongs in the conditional friendship category. The person who shows up during both celebration and crisis belongs in the loyal ally category. The person who enhances your life while requiring minimal maintenance belongs in the rare treasure category. This categorization isn't judgment, it's strategy. You're not condemning anyone to their category, you're simply acknowledging their current capacity for loyalty and adjusting your expectations accordingly. Some people might evolve into higher categories through their actions over time. Most will remain exactly where their character has placed them. From your throne of clarity, you interact with each category appropriately. With acquaintances, you're pleasant but protective. With conditional friends, you're warm but cautious. With loyal allies, you're generous and available. With rare treasures, you're vulnerable and reciprocal. This precision in relationship management creates extraordinary results. You stop wasting emotional energy on people who don't deserve it. You stop being disappointed by predictable behavior. You stop being surprised by betrayal because you saw it coming from the testing phase. Most importantly, you start investing your best self in people who've earned access to it. The societal implications of this philosophy are staggering. Imagine a world where everyone operated from this level of clarity about human character. Toxic people would lose their power because their manipulation tactics would be immediately recognized. Genuine people would be appropriately valued and rewarded. The quality of human connection would improve dramatically because people would stop tolerating dysfunction in the name of politeness or hope. But here's the sophisticated paradox. The more clearly you see people's character, the more compassionate you become toward their limitations, even as you protect yourself from their destructive potential. Understanding that someone betrays because they're operating from fear doesn't make the betrayal acceptable, but it does make it impersonal. This emotional detachment, combined with strategic precision, makes you virtually unassailable. The advanced practitioner learns to communicate boundaries without explanation. When someone violates your trust, you don't need to confront, explain, or educate. You simply adjust their access level accordingly. The person who leaked your confidential information finds that you no longer share anything sensitive with them. The person who undermined your project discovers that you no longer include them in planning sessions. The person who spoke poorly of you in your absence realizes that social invitations have stopped arriving. This isn't punishment. It's natural consequences delivered with surgical precision. You're not trying to teach them lessons or change their behavior. You're simply protecting yourself and your energy by interacting with reality as it is, rather than as you wish it were. The professional applications become increasingly elegant. During contract negotiations, you gauge whether the other party honors their word during preliminary discussions. During hiring processes, you observe how candidates treat people they perceive as less powerful. During partnerships, you monitor whether they maintain the same energy and commitment when the initial excitement wears off. Most people operate from hope and assumption in these situations. You operate from testing and evidence. This gives you an extraordinary advantage because you're making decisions based on demonstrated character rather than projected potential. Here's the master-level insight. Once you've established this reputation for clarity and precision in your relationships, people begin testing themselves before they even interact with you. They sense that you see through surface presentations to essential character, so they either rise to meet that standard or avoid you entirely. Both outcomes serve your interests perfectly. The person who rises to meet the standard becomes a valuable addition to your circle. The person who avoids you saves you the time and energy of testing and categorizing them. This natural selection process means your life becomes increasingly populated with higher quality people who enhance rather than drain your energy. But perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this philosophy is that it transforms your relationship with power itself. You stop seeking power over others and start cultivating power within yourself. The power to see clearly, choose wisely, and act decisively. The power to love deeply without losing yourself. The power to trust completely while maintaining appropriate boundaries. From this position, you don't need to control others because you understand them so completely that their behavior becomes predictable. You don't need to manipulate outcomes because you're selecting situations and people with such precision that positive results become inevitable. You don't need to defend yourself because you've already positioned yourself in relationships and environments where attack is unlikely. This is the throne Machiavelli never fully described, not the seat of political power that requires constant vigilance and strategic maneuvering, but the position of psychological mastery that makes external power both natural and sustainable. It's the difference between ruling through force and ruling through clarity, between commanding obedience and inspiring loyalty, between taking power and being granted it. The final test, the one that determines whether you truly understand this philosophy, is whether you can apply it to yourself. Can you honestly assess your own patterns of loyalty and betrayal? Can you identify the ways you've failed other people's tests? Can you acknowledge your own character limitations while still holding others accountable for theirs? This self-application isn't about self-criticism, it's about self-elevation. Understanding your own capacity for loyalty makes you a more valuable ally. Acknowledging your own limitations makes you more strategic about the relationships you pursue. Recognizing your own growth edges makes you more patient with others' development while still maintaining appropriate boundaries. The person who masters this dual perspective, crystal clear about others while ruthlessly honest about themselves, becomes virtually unstoppable. They attract loyalty because they offer it authentically. They inspire trust because they demonstrate trustworthiness. They command respect because they respect the fundamental truth that character is destiny. And here, finally, is where the philosophy transcends strategy and becomes art. The greatest power isn't the ability to manipulate others into serving your interests, but the ability to align yourself so completely with reality that the universe itself seems to conspire in your favor. When you see people clearly, choose relationships wisely, and act from absolute integrity, you don't need to force outcomes. They emerge naturally from the quality of your choices. This is your throne, not built on the bones of your enemies or the submission of your subjects, but constructed from the clarity of your vision and the precision of your character. From this position, you don't rule through fear or manipulation. You reign through the simple, devastating power of being exactly who you are, while seeing exactly who everyone else is. The dust has settled, the tests are complete. The weak have revealed themselves and been categorized accordingly. The strong have proven themselves and been welcomed into your inner circle. And you sit in perfect clarity, knowing exactly who you can count on, exactly what you're working with, and exactly how to navigate whatever challenges lie ahead. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a completely different kind of life, a life where betrayal becomes impossible because you see it coming, where loyalty becomes precious because you know its true value, where power becomes natural because it emerges from understanding rather than force. The throne is yours, the kingdom is clarity, the crown is the absolute certainty that you know exactly who everyone is and exactly where they belong in your carefully constructed world. And from this position, you don't just survive the game of human relationships, you transcend it entirely, operating from a level of consciousness that makes you virtually untouchable while remaining completely authentic. This is power in its purest form. The ability to see reality clearly and respond to it perfectly every single time.